Hi, my name is Dorian. I'm a nutritionist at Biospan, and today we're going to talk about type 2 diabetes. I'm going to give five actionable tips that you could start today that will improve your glycemic control and hopefully improve your diabetes. Number one is nutrition. It probably doesn't surprise you. If you know anything about diabetes or you have diabetes, you know that nutrition plays an important role. It's an incredibly complex topic. The science on nutrition is not very definitive. There are lots of weak studies, and you can generally argue for many different things. And in fact, many different nutritional interventions have been used or have been shown to benefit diabetes. Number one would be to eliminate hyperpalatable processed foods. Some nuance here. I mean, obviously, most foods are processed. Vegetables have to be harvested. Meat has to be butchered, but what I'm talking about is multiple ingredient foods. I'm talking about your cakes, your pastries, your biscuits, your crisps. These have been engineered to light up the right centers of your brain, to hack your satiety mechanisms, so they don't make you full. It has been shown that people eating hyperpalatable processed foods compared to whole foods will eat on average 500 calories more a day. And in general, these foods are made of refined flour, sugar, and refined fats like trans fats or vegetable oils. They will spike your blood sugar. They're absorbed extremely quickly in your small intestines. They will not fill you up. They will make you want to eat more. So, you can make a very good argument that hyperpalatable foods are a major contributory factor to metabolic disease epidemic, and avoiding them would go a long way to helping diabetes or any metabolic condition. So then my next point would be quite controversial, because that's eliminating grains. So a lot of advice from diabetics is to consume more whole grains, on the basis that compared to refined flour, like we just discussed in processed foods, they're broken down slower, leading to a slower spike in blood glucose. Well, I would argue, and clinically we see, actually grains aren't really, even whole grains like oats, aren't particularly beneficial when it comes to managing blood glucose. You can quite easily test this yourself. Eat a bowl of porridge for breakfast, test your blood glucose before and after, and then compare it to some eggs, for instance. You can even do this equating for calories, and you will notice that you get a large movement in blood glucose with the oats and not with the eggs. Now, there are studies done where whole grains have been used to improve glycemia, but this is all, the devil's in the detail. Generally speaking, you can make massive improvements on metabolic disease with any condition if you're controlling calories. And that's the problem, because when you eat that bowl of porridge and your blood sugar spikes and then goes down 2 hours later, you'll be hungry again. Whereas when you eat the bowl of eggs, you don't get the blood sugar spike, your blood sugar stays stable, and maybe you don't need to eat again until lunch. And that is why I would suggest avoiding grains. Other starchy carbohydrates aren't necessarily as dense in carbohydrates. And lastly, for nutrition, is protein. There are no magic foods or macronutrients, but protein comes pretty damn close. As an energy substrate, the body sees carbohydrate and fat as energy substrates. Protein can be used for energy, but it has so many functions in the body. In fact, protein consumption is essential. We need to eat protein to live. Neurotransmitters, which is messages systems in your nerves, are built from proteins, as well as part of your antioxidant system, your internal antioxidant system. How you create antioxidants is made from proteins. But metabolically, protein is more satiating than other macronutrients. That means that it keeps you fuller for longer. So like what I said with the eggs for breakfast, it will keep you feeling full, so you won't feel like you need to eat again. It stabilizes blood sugar. It is turned into blood sugar, but not at the same rate as, say, refined carbohydrates. It generally has a stabilizing effect on blood sugar. And it has a higher thermic effect than carbohydrates or fat. That means that it literally, you burn more energy utilizing protein than you do carbohydrates or fat. So in effect, it increases your metabolic rate, and it stimulates muscle growth, which also increases your metabolic rate. Metabolic rate being how many calories you burn a day. Obviously, these are all beneficial towards a disease where blood sugar is elevated and you want to utilize that blood sugar. So my recommendation is to shoot, the general guidelines are 15% protein per day, and I just think that's trash, to be honest. I would say 25% plus of your calories from protein a day. I'd actually shoot for more. I'd shoot for 40%. It's very hard to make 40% protein a day because protein is so satiating. You will feel very full. You won't feel the need to eat constantly. But anywhere over 25%, and that should work well. Okay, so that's nutrition. High palatable food, eliminate grains and high palatable food, and increase protein. Number 2 is resistance training. So a lot of the literature focuses on type 2 diabetes, the problem of calories, and the issue, there's truth in that, obviously, but the issue with focusing on it from that point of view is, this whole concept of eat less, move more, is there's nuance. There's a lot of nuance to that. If you literally just eat less, if you just decide, right, I need to move more, the best way to do that is to go for a run, which is the best way to move more for sure. Steady state cardio. What you're doing is you're sending your body a message to become more efficient. So you go for a run for an hour, you send the message to your body to become more efficient, and then you come back home or to the office or wherever you work or live, and you're sedentary. So you've just told your body to conserve calories, and then you then go and lead a sedentary lifestyle where you're surrounded by hyperpalatable food. That's not a very good recipe for success. What's more, aerobic exercise is steady state aerobic exercise is seen as a prolonged stress by the body, and we'll come on to stress later and how that can also contribute to blood glucose dysregulation. So my recommendation is resistance training. Why? Because muscle is a glucose sink. 80% of the glucose in your body ends up in muscle, and 20% it can be stored in your liver. It literally stores glucose as glycogen, as does your liver, and that it's there as fuel to be used when you need it. So if you can build muscle, you are creating a larger reserve for that glucose. So what does that do to your blood glucose? Well, it has more places to go, so it's going to be under better control. So resistance training doesn't mean you need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It doesn't mean you need to be lifting enormous weights. You don't need to be young. You can scale this to your ability. You can be in your 70s and 80s, and you can scale a resistance training program with body weight or whatever you have available to your ability. Everyone has the ability to build muscle. Everyone has the ability to adapt. The day you can't adapt anymore is actually the day you die. So you can be old, you can have type 2 diabetes, and you can build muscle just fine with resistance training. So scale it to your ability. I would recommend seeking a personal trainer who has experience especially with type 2 diabetes, if that's what you have, and if you don't have experience yourself. And I would recommend full body sessions, and I would say 2 to 4 times a week. Okay, so number 3 is sleep. Sleep is extremely important for all functions, including glycemic control. Actually, after a bad night's sleep, you are more insulin resistant. That means you are less able to get blood glucose into your cells. Insulin is the signaling molecule that does that. If you're resistant to insulin, your cells aren't listening to that signal. They won't take up glucose. You will have higher blood sugar. So optimizing sleep should be everyone's priority. This is no different to type 2 diabetes. Poor sleep has been correlated with numerous diseases, most diseases, and type 2 diabetes is no different. The main thing with sleep is sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene has been shown to improve sleep quality, which will improve outcomes in any disease, including type 2 diabetes. And that includes a regular wake-up time. People often think of a regular bedtime, but you start in the morning with a regular wake-up time. Actually, I would recommend not only a regular wake up time, but as soon as you can, get sun on your eyes. I mean, that's difficult in winter, but you know, as soon as the sun comes up, go out, have a look. As soon as the sun is on your eyes in the morning, it has an influence on your circadian rhythm. It sort of resets your circadian clock, and that can be beneficial. Looking at the sun sort of midday or in the afternoon doesn't really make a difference. We find that morning sun, when it comes up, that can have a big impact on your circadian rhythm. And then a regular bedtime, which obviously is also important, but probably not as important for reestablishing your circadian rhythm as the early wake-up time. You want a dark room, as dark as possible, really. You don't really want lights in the corridor or anything like that. We are built to sleep in the dark, and actually, even when your eyes are closed, you can sense light on your skin, and that actually can tell you to wake up. So you want as dark as possible, and you want it to be cold as well. Having a warm bedroom is not a good idea for the quality of your sleep. You want to crack a window. You want the bedroom to be about 18 degrees. It's obviously, it's not freezing, but it's 16 to 18 degrees really, but it's chilly. And one proven method, if you want to try to improve further, are blue blocking glasses. Obviously in the modern environment, we have screens, we have phones, and these have blue light and they all disrupt our sleep. Seeing that blue light at night can disrupt your circadian rhythm. So my number one advice would be actually to stop screens 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. But in the event that you can't do that, blue blocking glasses have been shown to be effective. So you can purchase them from Amazon. So number 4 is stress management. Stress management is, sleep allows you to be more resilient to stress. So the better your stress is, the better your sleep is, the more stress you can actually take on. Conversely, the better you manage stress, the better you'll sleep. So they're sort of related. So stress has a physiological effect on the body, which is to produce stress hormones. So the major stress hormone is cortisol. And cortisol is your get up and go. It's what wakes you up in the morning, what keeps you going. It's what you utilize when you're exercising, say. But you can have overstimulation of stress hormones. You can have dysregulation of stress hormones, which may throw off your circadian biology. It can disrupt your sleep, and that's very common in the modern world. And stress is associated with insulin resistance. It is associated with type 2 diabetes, and there are probably many reasons for that. The modern environment is an environment of chronic low-level stress. The environment we were involved in was more an environment of acute stressors, like a flight or flight moment that then would no longer be a problem. Chronic stresses in terms of work stresses, life stresses, family stresses, looking at a blue screen at night. These are all low-level chronic stress, and they can have an effect on dysregulating your circadian rhythm, dysregulating your stress hormones. And one of the main jobs of cortisol is to liberate blood glucose from the liver by gluconeogenesis. If you are stressed, you will have higher blood glucose. So mastering stress will obviously contribute to a better balance of blood glucose. And there are a number of ways that have been shown to improve stress. Now, stress management should really be viewed in the same way as exercise. It's exercise of your brain. It's not like resistance training is exercise of your muscles. People seem to think regular exercise is important, but they don't necessarily put stress management practices in the same bracket, but actually it is. And I'm one of these people. I really enjoy exercising. I don't enjoy stress management practices, but if you want to get better at anything, you have to be consistent. Good stress management practices that have been shown to improve stress, meditation, and really just finding that time to close your eyes and have your brain in a different state through the day. That has been shown to actually, in scientific studies, they use fMRI, which is when you hook up to the brain to look at what part of the brain is being stimulated. It reduces the stimulation of the amygdala, which is your fight and flight response center in the center of your brain, very primitive part of your brain. And actually over time, with consistent practice, you can actually shrink the size of your amygdala. It's not something that if you do one session of meditation, you're all of a sudden a Zen master. That's not going to happen, or even a week. But if you consistently do it, like with resistance training, over time, you will find that you are more resilient to stress. Yoga is another great one. Yoga, it depends. I would recommend hatha yoga, which is the more a relaxing kind of yoga. It's good to view it as a mobility practice, connecting the breath to your movement. And it's really how you view it. A lot of people look at yoga as exercise and they push themselves on the poses. That is not the right way to get stress management out of yoga. Connecting the breath to the movements, and not push yourself maybe in the gym, but that's not the place to do it if you're using it primarily as a stress management practice. A gratitude practice. Gratitude is a feeling that, again, the modern environment doesn't really instill. And something as simple as having a gratitude diary in the morning or before you go to bed, that can stimulate hormones in your brain, messages that we don't really get enough of. And it can be silly things. Even it doesn't have to be, I am grateful for the love of my family. It doesn't have to be big things. It can be, it can be silly things. I'm grateful for my coffee. It can be completely selfish. It's whatever makes you feel grateful. But the point is, you're keying in on that feeling of gratitude. And like I said, that's something that we're really deficient from. And then focusing on interpersonal relationships. Relationships can become very functional. Modern life, kids, work, busy schedules, they can make you forget really what family, your loved ones and your friends are for. And the healthiest people in the world, one thing they all have in common is they have healthy interpersonal relationships. We're a tribal species. We're built to, live in family units and tribal units. So, you have to manage those relationships correctly. And if you're not happy with the relationships you're in, maybe think how you can make it better, because you can't really change how other people treat you. And obviously that's a bit deep just for something on nutrition, and I'm definitely not a psychologist or an expert in any of that, but healthy interpersonal relationships definitely correlate to better health outcomes. And obviously this all ties into stress and your management of your blood glucose. And the last but not least is activity. And again, I'm not talking about going for an hour-long run that's going to jack your stress hormones and contribute maybe to stress. I'm talking about gardening, activity around the house. We live sedentary lives. NEAT, as it's known, is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. In other words, the activity you do when you're not deliberately exercising. Gardening, walking the dog, whatever it is. There is a study which shows that going for a 10-minute walk after every meal was more effective at controlling blood glucose than metformin. Twice as effective, actually. Twice as effective as one of the leading drugs we have for controlling blood glucose. Just going for a walk after every meal. That's a good way to do it. Or if you prefer a long walk with your dog, that's a good way to do it. Or if you just want to do chores around the house, or if you just want to do gardening, whatever's going to get you going, get you moving. And combined with your higher protein diet, your extra muscle mass, your lower levels of stress and your better sleep, that will massively contribute to better glycemic control. And these are all things that have been shown to contribute to improvements in diabetes outcomes, and in some cases, diabetes reversal. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, share it, like it. I look forward to the next one. See you all soon.